Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah wa ba'd. So, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we're going to try to get through the rest of these principles that we began last evening or last night in discussing some of the principles of the Salafi methodology. We covered yesterday, on yesterday's sitting, 4 principles. Does anybody recall what those 4 were? What's the first of the 4? The first of the 4 principles that we covered yesterday. Not being updated to use the name Salafī. So the first one was Al-Intisab ila-Salafiyya, or ascription to Salafiyya. As our Sheikh Azad, he mentioned that it is to not be afraid or not to shy away from referring to yourself as Salafi. This is the principle of Salafiyya. Okay, ascription to a Salafiyya. So what was the second principle? No. Men are known by way of the truth, and the truth is not known by way of men. How do we understand that? What is it? What is intended by men are known by truth? What is intended by that? No. So you're going to analyze the person's statements and actions in light of the scale by way of which you weigh the people's statements and actions. It's 2 things: and nas wal ijma. All right, the text meaning kitab, sunnah, and the ijma. Okay, the third principle was what? It was centered around al-hubbu wal-bughd, our love and our hatred. Our love and our hatred. That we love an individual and we love that person for the sake of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. If we hate, then we hate likewise for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Our love and hatred is built and predicated upon that, and not built and predicated upon ashkhas. We don't love and hate for the sake of individuals, for the sake of people. Rather, we love and hate, and we align with others for the sake of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We disassociate from others for the same reason. The 4th principle that we mentioned last night, or yesterday, was what? Al-raddu ala al-mukhalif, to rebut and to refute the mukhalif, or the one who opposes what is correct. How do we understand this principle? If the one that opposes what is correct is Salafi, at his asl, he's a person of Sunnah, then how do we deal with him and his error? Hmm? With hikmah? What do we make? What's the... Okay, so this is in relation to the principle period. This is, you have 2 angles. You have the angle of the khata itself, the mistake itself, of his mukhalafa, and then you have the angle of the khati, or the mukhalif, right? The one who has made the error, the one who has opposed what is correct. So as it relates to the one who has opposed what is correct, he's going to be one of 2 people. He's going to be one of 2 people. And what are these 2? What's the first one? Okay, yes, we're speaking about one who is upon guidance, one who is upon sunnah, right? The person that is origin, he is a Salafi, he's a Sunni, person of sunnah. How do we deal with him and his mistake? Okay, you're going to rebut the mistake that was made, right? We're just not going to accept the mistake just because it comes from our friend or someone whom we love. We don't just accept something that's clearly wrong. If it's clearly wrong, then we're not going to accept that which is wrong. We rebut the error. But how do we deal with him though? Huh? Who said that? Nah, okay. You're gonna rebut the error but preserve his honor. You rebut the error but preserve his honor. Okay? So you're not gonna just treat him as though he's a mubtadi' because he erred. He's at his asl, he's Salafi, Sunni. He's known to be upright upon the Sunnah. And this person may make a mistake, an actual mistake, or it's a perceived mistake. And this is what you find. And there's some of the people they err, and they err as it relates to this principle. And so when someone from Ahlul Sunnah, known to be from Ahlul Sunnah, perhaps he's an alim, perhaps he's a student of knowledge, perhaps he has tazkiyat, this individual makes a mistake, or it is a perceived mistake, then you find one who contradicts and opposes this also, treating that person as though he's an innovator, perhaps name calling him with the likes of the names which we have heard that they call and refer to the people of Sunnah as in this day and time. And this is something of old, right? You find the people who are in opposition to the methodology of the Salaf of old, they used to call Ahl Sunnah names. Used to call them, the worthless ones. They would call them all types of names. In this day and time, perhaps they call them Sa'afiqa, perhaps they call them whatever they want to call them. Now, but you don't treat the person of Sunnah like this. If the person of Sunnah makes an error, again, if it is an actual error or a perceived error, then you don't accept the error. You don't accept the mistake, but you preserve his honor. You preserve his honor. But the same mistake being made by a person at his origin is a mubtadi', and this is the second person of the two. The second person of the two who opposes what is correct. The person may be a mubtadi', is an innovator, a person of desires. You refute him and his error. You see the difference? With the Sunnah, you refute the error but preserve his honor. The person of innovation and desires, he is refuted as an individual, and you refute his error, وَلَا كَرَامَةَ لَهُ. And he has no honor with us. And he has no honor with us. Details, we brought some details as it relates to this issue yesterday in relation to the speech of Sheikh Ubaid, and how he mentioned that if the influence and the strength and the dominance is with Ahl Sunnah, then they deal with him like this in this manner, right? They totally obliterate him. And this is in order to chase the people away from him and for it to be a warning against him and like was and out of advice to the Muslims so that they won't traverse upon his path and incline towards him. If it be the case that the Mubtadi'ah themselves have influence and they have power and they have dominance, as we found throughout Islamic history, there were certain points and periods in time wherein the people of innovation had the ear of the ruler and the likes of this. Ahl Sunnah in this point or in this time, they would suffice with refuting the innovation itself. They would suffice with refuting the innovation itself if the power and the influence was with them. Now, these are the 4 principles that we covered up to this point yesterday. Right? We're going to pick up today from the 5th principle. From the 5th principle. We have 3 more, right? 5, 6, and 7. We'll try to get through them all, inshallah ta'ala, because we have a telelink with Sheikh Mustafa Mabram at 2 o'clock. It's 1:13 now. So the 5th principle, Qa'idatul Khamisa, fi asl ad-din wa asasu. And this one is connected to what is the foundation and basis of our religion. What is our religion based upon? What is its foundation? Now, connected to Al-Qa'idatul Khamisa fi asl ad-din wa asasihi. وهذه القاعدة الكلام فيها يتضمن 3 أمور. This principle and his speech regarding it is going to have is going to comprise of 3 points, of 3 affairs. The first affair, al-murad bihadha ad-din. What is intended when we say deen? When we say the deen, or the principles or the foundation of the deen, what are we speaking about? What does the term deen mean? He says, لا فإنه لا ينصرف عندنا إلا إلى دين الإسلام. He said, according to us, I mean, Ahl Sunnah, we're not speaking about anything other than the deen of Al-Islam. And this is the religion which all of the prophets and messengers came. Every single prophet, every single messenger that came, they came with the deen of Al-Islam. He says, and we're not speaking about the linguistic meaning of the term ad-din. Because the linguistic meaning of the term ad-din, it has various meanings linguistically. And amongst its meanings linguistically is at-ta'a, it means obedience. Likewise, it means al-khudu', humility. It means at-tadhallul, subjugation and lowering of something or someone. It likewise means al-jaza', recompense and reward. Maliki yawm ad-din, as Allah Ta'ala says, the owner and the king of the day of ad-din, the day of al-jaza'. This is amongst the meanings of ad-din. Bal yurad bihi al-ma'na al-shar'i. But what we are speaking about when we say ad-din, we're speaking about its legislative meaning. وهو دين الله. It is the religion of Allah Ta'ala. الذي ما بعث نبي ولا ما بعث نبي ولا رسول إلا به. It is that deen or that religion which no prophet, no messenger was sent except with it. وهو دين al-Islam. It is the religion of al-Islam. So this is what we mean when we say ad-deen. Follow me. Second affair. The second affair, fil Islam. Okay, now that we've defined what it is that we're speaking about, and we're speaking about when we say the word ad-deen, the deen of al-Islam. So what is al-Islam? What is al-Islam? Mahu. So what is the definition for Islam that was given by Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab? This is the ta'rif al-Islam. It's the definition of al-Islam. It is al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed, to yield or to submit to Allah Ta'ala upon at-tawheed. Wal-inqiyadu lahu bit-ta'a, to yield obediently to Him, tabaraka wa ta'ala. Wa-bura'atu min ash-shirki wa ahli, and to free oneself from shirk and the people of shirk. هذا هو دين الحق. This is the religion of truth. وهذا هو الذي رضي الله به لثقلين الجن والإنس. It is that which Allah Ta'ala is pleased with for the thaqalain, meaning the jinn and mankind. The third affair connected to this principle, or that this principle comprises or contains within it, في أصل هذا الدين. What is the foundation? What is the basis of its religion? What is this deen based upon? What is the primary focal point that this religion evolves around? Ad-deen alladhi, this religion which Allah Ta'ala is not pleased except with it for His servants and for the lands. Lahu aslun yanbani alayh. It has a principle and a basis or a foundation that it is built upon. And this foundation, it is not subject and open to al-aql, to intellectual free thinking. One's opinions and one's thoughts, one's ihtisanat, that which we deem to be good and okay. This is not what we're going to base our religion upon. Politics and the likes of that. We don't base our deen, we don't base our religion upon any of that. Rather, where we extract this also from is from an-nas wal-ijma'. From the nas, from the text, as we mentioned, an-nas is what? Kitab and Sunnah, ala fahm salaf. And likewise the ijma' or the consensus. Now, as it relates to what this religion is built and predicated upon, asl ad-deen wa asasuhu amran. The asl of this religion and its foundation is two matters. It's two matters. When you look at and you examine the teachings of al-Islam, you find everything revolves around these two affairs. The first of them, ad-da'wa ila ibadatillahi wahda, is calling to the worship of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala alone. He says, wa tahreed ala dhalik, an encouragement upon that, and having association with some on the account of that, and disassociation from others on the account of that, and those unbelieving, that those who abandon this, they abandon this affair of worshiping Allah alone, meaning that they are upon the shirk, then we believe and we understand that these people are not Muslims, they are disbelievers. This is the first. The second matter, al-idhkar or al-indhar wa tahdhir min al-shirki fi ibadatillah, is to warn against and to caution away from the association of partners with Allah in His worship. Wa taghlid fi dhalik, and being stern upon that. And being stern upon that. And likewise, having disassociation from those who are upon that way, as we heard when we mentioned the definition of al-Islam. From that is what? Al-bara'atu min ash-shirki wa ahli, to disassociate oneself and to free oneself of shirk and its people. And understanding that those who are upon that way, the way of polytheism, they are disbelievers. This affair, you'll find, is part and parcel of the call of all of the prophets and messengers. Every single prophet and messenger called to this. Now, the calling to the worship of Allah Ta'ala alone, and likewise warning against polytheism. If you analyze and you read the book of Shaykh Rabi, Manhaj al-Anbiya fi Da'wa Allah, you find proof after proof after proof, example after example after example of what we're mentioning now. Every single prophet that was sent, this was the focal point of their call. Calling to Tawheed and warning against shirk. And amongst the evidences, he mentions a number of proofs and evidences for this asl. We'll suffice with a few of them, inshallah ta'ala. But the evidences for this can be found in the Kitab, the Sunnah, and the Ijma' A'immat ad-Din al-Mu'tabirin. Allah Ta'ala mentions, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاعْبُدُونِ. Allah Ta'ala mentions, and we have not sent before you, O Muhammad. Muhammad being the last of the prophets and messengers. So that means every single prophet and messenger. Allah Ta'ala is saying, we have not sent before you, O Muhammad, any messenger, except that we revealed to him, saying, La ilaha illa ana, none has the right to be worshipped in truth except I, therefore worship me. Likewise, the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. And we have sent amongst every ummah a messenger proclaiming, worship Allah Ta'ala alone and avoid at-taghut. At-taghut, كُلْ مَا تَجَاوَزَ بِهِ الْعَبْدُ الْهَدْ. At-taghut is everything regarding which the servant goes beyond bounds from that which is worshipped, followed, and obeyed. This is at-taghut. Avoid all of that. Avoid all of that and worship Allah Ta'ala alone. This is the meaning of La ilaha illallah. It's the meaning of La ilaha illallah. Now, so all of these verses that we mentioned and more, they all are explicit in two affairs. Firstly, the obligation of singling out Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in worship, and likewise the avoidance and the prohibition of polytheism. As for evidences from the Sunnah, then the evidences from the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet ﷺ for this also are many. From them there is the narration of Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu قال سألت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أي ذنب أعظم عند الله. I asked the Prophet ﷺ which sin is greater with Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. قال أن تجعل الله ندا وهو خلقك. That you should make a rival unto Allah while it is He who has created you. قلت إن ذلك لعظيم ثم أي. I said, meaning Ibn Mas'ud said, that I said, indeed that is something which is horrendous. And then which? قال, he said, أن تقتل ولدك تخاف أن تطعم معك or يطعم معك. He said that you should kill your child out of fear that the child should eat along with you. قلت ثم أي. I said, and then which one? قال أن تزانيا حليل جارك. That you should fornicate with the womenfolk of your neighbor. Now, this hadith is in the Sahih of Al-Bukhari in various places. Amongst those places, it is in Kitab al-Tawheed. The second hadith is the hadith of Abu Hurraira. The Messenger of Allah alayhi says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْضَ لَكُمْ ثَلَاثًا. That indeed Allah Ta'ala is pleased for you with three things. وَيَكْرَهْ لَكُمْ ثَلَاثًا. And He detests for you three matters. فَيَرْضَ لَكُمْ أَن تَعْبُدُوهُ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. He is pleased for you. The first thing that He mentioned is that you should worship Allah Ta'ala alone and not associate anything as a partner with Him. Look, again, we have the ma'na of La ilaha illallah in a clear text of the legislation. Al-Hadith. The third narration is the Hadith of Abu Hurraira as well, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, أنا أولى الناس بعيسى ابن مريم في الدنيا والآخرة والأنبياء إخوة لعلات أمهاتهم شتى ودينهم واحد. He says, I have the closest connection to Isa ibn Maryam in this life as well as the hereafter. And the prophets are ikhwatun li'allat. They are all paternal brethren. The prophets are all paternal brethren. I mean, they came from the same lineage by way of their father. Ummuhum wa ummuhatuhum shatta. Their mothers are variant. The ulama, they say what is intended by mothers here is the sharia. The shara'i and the legislations of those prophets are variant. They have different legislations. وَدِينُهُمْ wahid. But their religion is one. Now, so when we look at the likes of these narrations, then we find that these two foundations, these two principles that we mentioned, the obligation of singling Allah Ta'ala in worship, and likewise the prohibition of polytheism, and is a common theme as we see within these narrations. Now, we'll move on to the sixth principle. Now, we understand what the fifth is, right? What's the fifth principle? It is connected to what? The asl. What is this religion is based upon? What is your religion based upon? What is the foundation of your religion? Now, al-qa'idatu sadisa, the sixth principle. It is in relation to fi shahadatain, connected to the two testimonies. The sixth principle from the principles of Salafiyah, it is connected to the two testimonies. الشهادتان في المعنى الشرعي هما إقرار المكلف على نفسه لله بالوحدانية ولمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم بالرسالة. That the legislative meaning of these two testimonies, it is that the person, the responsible person, meaning the one who has sound intellect, he's of age, and like this, that he affirms upon himself for Allah Ta'ala bil-wahdaniyya, that he is one. The Allah Ta'ala, he is one. Wali Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he affirms for the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam al-risala, the messengership. This is the ma'na al-shar'i of La ilaha illallah Muhammad al-Rasulullah. ولهذا فإنهما أول ما يبدأ به في الإسلام. Due to this, you find that these two testimonies, they are the first of that by way of which a person enters into the deen of Islam. فلا يدخل في الإسلام أحد حتى يعلن بها. So no one can enter into Islam until he outwardly manifests and proclaims these two testimonies. So we're going to present a question, inshallah ta'ala. You find that these two testimonies, the testimony that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah Ta'ala, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the messenger of Allah, they are two testimonies, but they are only one pillar of Al-Islam. They are two testimonies, but they are only one pillar of Al-Islam. Why is this? Why are they not two separate pillars? Why is it two testimonies, but they are only one pillar of Al-Islam? So our brother mentions that one of them cannot stand except with the other. We agree with this? Well, this is true. Anybody have anything else? Muhammad, what you got, brother? Abu Isa, what you got for me? Picking on the Norfolk brothers today. Abu Zaina, what you got? We agree with that, right? It's two testimonies, but only one pillar, right? This is similar to the answer of Abdul Fattah, that we believe in Allah Ta'ala by way of what was brought by the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. This is true. Anybody have anything else? Connected his obedience with his obedience. All good answers. So, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen, he mentions, and you can find this inside of his explanation to the three fundamental principles, which we refer you to. Why are these two testimonies two testimonies, but they only make up one pillar. This is because the acceptance of every act of worship that we do depends upon the implementation of both of them together. Right? We know the conditions for the acceptance of good deeds, right? Now, what are they? Ikhlas lillah, and this is what is comprised in the statement La ilaha illallah. And the second, Mutaba ala Sunnah, following of the Sunnah, and this is what is comprised in the statement Muhammad al-Rasulullah. Now, so this is why there are two statements but one pillar. Now, الكلام على الشهادتين يتضمن عدة فروع. Speech regarding the two testimonies, it consists of a number of subsidiary branches. الفرع الأول في السبب الذي منع المشركين من الشهادتين. What is the reason that prohibited the polytheists from these two testimonies? Meaning the polytheists during the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Quraysh ومن حولها, يعني the Quraysh and those who were near them from the people of the Jazeera, of the peninsula. Now, the Arab, they were the leaders in al-fasaha, yani in eloquence. Now, and they were figureheads of balagha in the Arabic language. And they knew the madlulat al-alfaz. They knew the indications and the implications behind statements. Now, what's an evidence of this? That the Arabs, they clearly understood the meanings of statements, and they understood the intent behind them. Now, so we see where the Shaykh is going with this, right? They understood the meaning of La ilaha illallah. They clearly understood that. What's an evidence for that? Nah, huh? This is not what we're looking for, though. ISLAMIC. Okay, so this is the ma'na of rububiyyah, right? This is what we're going to use to establish the fact that, that even the pagans believed in the lordship of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, but then believing in the lordship of Allah was not sufficient to enter them into al-Islam. Now, we're going to look at and examine the hadith of the death of Abu Talib. Right, the hadith of the death of Abu Talib, in which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came to him and he said, Ya ammi, qul la ilaha illallah, kalimatan uhajju laka biha indallah. O my uncle, say la ilaha illallah, a statement which I will use to plead on your behalf in front of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Who was there along with him? Who was there along with the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam and Abu Talib? Abu Jahl. Anybody else? Obvious dad. Sufyan, you mean, right? I think one narration does mention that. The narration that we have in Sahih Bukhari, right? It mentions that along with the Prophet alayhi salam and Abu Talib at the time was Abu Jahl, as everybody mentioned. There were three people, right? Who else? Abdullah ibn Abi Umayyah, and a third person. Okay, Al-Musayyib. Al-Musayyib. Who's Al-Musayyib? He's the father of who? Okay. His father or his son was Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, one of the seven fuqaha, and he's the teacher of Imam Malik. The teacher of Imam Malik. Okay, so Imam Malik's teacher was Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. And the father of Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, mean al-Musayyib, he was the narrator of this hadith. He's the narrator of this hadith. So it indicates, the fact that he narrated indicates what? That he was there. He was there. Now, you have these three men that were there, right? Two of them later embraced Islam. Two of them later embraced Islam. One of them didn't. And we all know who the one that didn't embrace Islam is, right? Who's that? Abu Jahl, we know what he died upon. The other two later embraced Islam. Now, they later embraced Islam. So, when the Messenger of Allah said what he said to him, to Abu Talib, say La ilaha illallah, statement which I will use to argue and plead on your behalf in front of Allah, What was the response of Abu Jahl and Abdullah ibn Abi Umayyah? You're going to turn away from the religion of Abdul Muttalib as an indication that he understood the meaning of La ilaha illallah. He understood the meaning of it. And he knew that the meaning of La ilaha illallah and its implication is that you're abandoning polytheism. You're abandoning idol worship. You're abandoning the religion of Abdul Muttalib. Because the religion of Abdul Muttalib was what? Shirk. That was his deen. Now, so what do we say about those individuals who say La ilaha illallah upon their tongues all day? They say it within their prayer, yet they make dua to inhabitants of graves, yet they call upon the deceased and the likes of this. We say that Abu Jahl understood La ilaha illallah better than you do. At any rate, the Arabs, they understood the meanings and intent behind statements, and they knew their implications. He says, and so their understanding and their knowledge of the Arabic language and the intent behind these words, and they knew that this would mean that they must abandon everything that they had been previously upon. It means they had to admit that they were wrong, and they had to leave off the religion of their fathers. This is what prevented them from saying La ilaha illallah. They didn't even want to say it. They didn't even want to say it. Now, he says, no. The second branch, في الشهادة أن محمد رسول الله, connected to the testimony that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. هذه الشهادة ليست مجرد كلمة ترددها الألسن. He says this testimony, it is not merely a statement that is, it is repeated upon one's tongue and the lips move with it. Rather, hiya taklif, rather it makes you responsible for something. It is a responsibility. Now, once you utter the statement. Lakin, often he says, وَحَمْلٌ عَظِيمٌ, it is a tremendous undertaking. لَكِنَّهُ يَسِيرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَّرَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ, but it is easy for the one that Allah Ta'ala makes it easy for. And it is that whoever utters this testimony that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, then 4 affairs become binding upon him. 4 affairs become binding upon him. And these are what we call the rights of the messenger of Allah alayhi wasalam, and the pillars of the testimony that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And these 4 affairs, they are ta'atuhu fima amara. Firstly, obedience to him in whatever he has commanded you with. The second of them, I don't see pens moving. I guess y'all noticed already, alhamdulillah. Okay. The second of them, tasdiquhu fima akhbara, is believing in him and everything that he has informed us with. وَاجْتِنَابُ مَا نَهَى عَنْهُ وَزَجَرَ, and that you avoid everything that he has prohibited and disavowed. وَأَلَّا يُعْبَدَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَرَعَ, and that Allah is not to be worshipped except with that which he alayhi wasallam has legislated. These are the rights of the Messenger of Allah alayhi wasallam upon us, and they are the pillars of the testimony that Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. So therefore, whoever completes these 4 affairs, whoever completes these 4 matters, then he is truthful in his testimony that Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. Now, the third branch, it is أنه يجب على المسلم في نبيه صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يعتقد عموم رسالته إلى الثقلين. It's that the Muslim must believe as it relates to his prophet, that his risala, it is general for the entirety of the thaqalain, for the entirety of the jinn and mankind. His message alayhi wasallam is not restricted to being a message for the Arab. It is not restricted to being a message for this people or that people. Rather, his message or his risala is general for all of mankind and the jinn. And that he alayhi salatu wasalam balagh al-balagh al-mubin, he conveyed that risala. with a clear conveyance. وَأَنَّهُ قَدْ بَلَغَ مَا أَمَرَهُ اللَّهُ بِهِ, and that he conveyed what Allah Ta'ala has commanded him with, without adding anything to that from himself, nor decreasing anything from that which he was commanded with. And similar is the case of all of the prophets and messengers. They all conveyed with a clear conveyance, and they were trustworthy and truthful in that which they conveyed, and they did so with that amana that Allah Ta'ala has placed upon them. Now, the seventh principle, and we'll conclude with this one, inshallah ta'ala. هذه القاعدة متممة للقاعدتين قبلها. That this qaida, it is a completer, if you will, of the two principles that came before it. لكن أحببنا أن نبرزها لأن بعض المنتسبين إلى شريعة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ليسوا متفقين في الانقياد لله ولرسوله. So this principle, he says, it is connected to the principles that came before it, but we wish to single it out because some of the people that ascribe to the Sharia of Muhammad, alayhi as-salam, they are not truly in compliance with this principle, and it is al-inqiyad lillah wa li rasulihi, total submission to Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger. Total submission to Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger. And this is this principle, that one yields and submits to what has come in the book of Allah Ta'ala, what has come in the Sunnah of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Total submission to that. فالمنقاد لحكم الله ولحكم رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم تمام الانقياد, for those who, the individuals who truly submit and yield to the ruling of Allah Ta'ala and the ruling of His Messenger alayhi sallam with complete submission, hum ahl sunnah wal jama'ah, hum ahl salafiyya. The ones who do so truly are ahl sunnah wal jama'ah, they are the people of Salafiyya. You won't find anyone truly yielding and submitting to the text of the book and the Sunnah, returning their affairs back to what Allah Ta'ala has said, what the Messenger of Allah has said, alayhi salam, other than Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the people of Salafiyya. فالانقياد لحكم الله ولرسوله ينبني على ثلاثة أمور. So true yielding and submitting to the judgment and ruling of Allah and that of His Messenger alayhi salam is predicated upon three matters. And when the servant completes these three matters, he will have yielded and submitted totally and completely. And if he does not complete these three matters, then there is deficiency in his inqiyad. There's deficiency in his inqiyad. And these three affairs are, and as he mentioned, this particular principle, it is connected to the two that came before. So the first of these three matters is فِعْلُ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ وَرَسُولُهُ, is enacting that which Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger have commanded with. We're looking for the commands of Allah Ta'ala. When a command of Allah Ta'ala reaches you, the command of His Messenger alayhi reaches you, then you comply. You comply. You don't look for ways around it. You don't try to justify the abandonment of that command. Naam, you yield and you comply and you submit to the command of Allah and that of His Messenger alayhi. And when you look at those who are out there from the various groups, you'll find that there's only one group that are people of inqiyad and yielding and compliance and adherence to the command of Allah Ta'ala. They are Ahl Sunnah. This is Ahl Sunnah. Now, and as the Shaykh he mentions, that when there is lapses in your inqiyad, or there's lapses in you adhering to these three matters, then there's lapses and deficiency in your submission and compliance. The second matter, تَرْكُ مَا نَهَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُ وَرَسُولُهُ, is the abandonment of that which Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger have prohibited. The abandonment of whatever Allah and His Messenger have prohibited. So a prohibition reaches you, it is upon you to abandon that prohibition, or the thing that has been prohibited. Al-amru thalith, the third matter, tasdeeq khabar Allah wa rasuluhu, is that you believe in and affirm any information that reaches you from Allah wa ta'ala or His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we qualify that, the information that reaches you from the Messenger of Allah alayhi wasallam, we're going to restrict and qualify that by saying with an authentic route of transmission. That which reaches you from an authentic route of transmission from the Messenger of Allah alayhi wasallam, it is incumbent upon you to believe in that. Now, these are the three matters. So, when it comes to the commands of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala and His Messenger, then we must enact them and we must do them. And with regard to the commands, we do them as much as we are capable of doing them. As it relates to the prohibitions, then we must abandon them in totality. And there's no, there's not mentioned in relation to the abandonment of the prohibitions, our istita'a, our capability. Why? Because all you have to do is not do it. All you have to do is not do it. Now, but with the commands of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, for some of them you may find difficulty. Perhaps you are unable to perform some of the commands of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala for whatever reason. Now, so in this case, as it relates to the commands of Allah Ta'ala, it is connected to your capability of performing that command. Thirdly, it is a tasdeeq or tasdeeq khabar Allah, believing in, affirming the information that reaches you from Allah Ta'ala and from His Messenger. And he mentioned some shawahid, some of the texts that come in support of this affair. From that is a statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. That He said, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, whatever the Messenger gives you, do you take it? And whatever He has prohibited you from, then you abandon it. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. And have taqwa of Allah Ta'ala, indeed Allah is shadid al-iqab. Now, there's likewise come in the authentic narration indicating what we mentioned earlier, that as it relates to the awamir and the commands of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, it is restricted by al-istita'a. It is connected to our capability of performing that command. And as it relates to the abandonment of the nawahi and the prohibitions of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, فَلَيْسَ فِيهِ قَيْد. There is no restriction there. There's no restriction there. Rather, just leave it completely. And this is based upon the authentic narration in which the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Whatever I've commanded you to do as much of it as you're capable of doing. Do as much of it as you're capable of doing. وَمَا نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْهُ فَاجْتَنِبُوا. But what I have prohibited you from, avoid it completely. Avoid it completely. No mention of capability and ability and the likes of that as it relates to the prohibitions. So therefore, it is incumbent upon the Muslim that he enact the commands of Allah and His Messenger ﷺ as much as he is capable of doing. وَمَا عَجَزَ عَنْهُ, as it relates to what he is incapable of performing, then Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He is afuun, kareemun, He is oft pardoning, and He is kind and generous, as the Prophet ﷺ has informed us with. Now, as it relates to the issue of tasdeeq al-akhbar, and affirming and believing in the reports and the transmissions or the information that reaches us from Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger, then this as well is incumbent and obligatory upon the Muslim that he believe in whatever has come in the book of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. You believe in whatever has come from the book of Allah Ta'ala, and that which is authentically reported from the Messenger of Allah alayhi wasallam, whether that is connected to affairs that took place in the past, whether it is connected to affairs of the unseen, or it is connected to affairs that will take place in the future. Whatever has reached you from Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger, you believe in it. And what indicates and proves this is the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, آمَنَ الرَّسُولُ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ رَبِّهِ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ. The Messenger believes in what has been sent down to him from his Lord, as do the believers. كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله. All of them believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His messenger. لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله. And they don't differentiate between any of His messengers, meaning that they don't they don't believe in some of them while disbelieving others. They don't believe in some of them while disbelieving in others. Because we know that some of them are more virtuous than others. Ma'am? But we don't believe in some and reject others. This is what is intended by not differentiating between any of the messengers. But the shahid is here. وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. And they say, we believe or we hear and we obey. غُفْرَانَكَ رَبَّنَا وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. We seek your forgiveness, our Lord, and to you is the return. And this concludes the speech regarding these principles. So let's do a quick rundown of the principles, inshallah ta'ala, as we began them yesterday. What's the first principle again? Al-intisab ila-salafiyya, ascription to Salafiyya. The second? Al-haqqu la yu'raf bil-rijal, wa-rijal yu'rafu bil-haqq. Now, that the truth is not known by men, but men are known by way of the truth. Third, hub wal-bughd is connected to loving and hatred for the sake of Allah ta'ala. Al-rad, rebutting and refuting the mukhalif, the one who has opposed what is correct. Next, asl or asluddin or asasu, yani the foundation and basis upon which this religion is based. Next, huh? Linkar, nine, but it's connected to the two testimonies. What is connected to the two testimonies? And then, al-inqiyad lillahi wa rasulihi. Nine. Yielding and submitting to the commands of Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger alayhi as-salam. These are the principles mentioned by Sheikh Ubaid al-Jabri inside of this book, Imdad as-Salafī, and we advise all to return back to that book because we tried to summarize in points where in the Sheikh he went into great detail. We return back to that book. Alhamdulillah, it's been translated and published by Mirath Publications some maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Allah Ta'ala knows best. We conclude here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We have a telelink with our Sheikh Mustafa Mubram in about 7 minutes بإذن الله تعالى.